Hey guys, thanks for tuning in and hanging out with me once again. This week we're discussing the murder of the Kunz family. To this day, it is considered unsolved, because no one has really been formally convicted with the crimes, but they're pretty confident they know who did it. The Kunz family was reclusive and, for the most part, unknown despite living near a town with less than 1,000 people. The town of Athens would not only be rocked by the murder of the family, but all of the strange things that came to light afterwards. So I invite you to join me as we discuss the murder of the Kunz family. Sit back, relax, and let's dive in. The Kunz family lived a secluded and impoverished lifestyle in Athens, Wisconsin. They resided in a dilapidated farmhouse nestled on 108 acres, about 6 miles from the actual town. The family consisted of Helen, age 70, Clarence, 76, Irene, 81, Marie, 72, Randy, 30, and Kenneth, 55. Helen, Clarence, Irene, and Marie were siblings, while Randy and Kenneth were the children of Helen. The family stuck close to another, with all of them living in the same house except Kenneth, who had his own small trailer located on the property. They didn't have any acquaintances and only really spoke to immediate family. In fact, Kenneth was the only one to work outside of the home and really the only one to interact with the public on a consistent basis. He was a milk pasteurizer at the Kraft Inc. cheese factory and had been so for 35 years. But it came as a complete shock when on the morning of July 5th, 1987, Kenneth had returned to the property to find his family dead. His Aunt Marie was laying in the entrance doorway. Randy was on the kitchen floor with his body showing evidence of a struggle. Irene was in a chair, and Clarence was in bed. All were shot in the head execution style with a .22 caliber gun. 8 casings and several fired bullets were found in the home. Investigators also discovered some unknown tire impressions near the garden of the property. And his mother, Helen, was nowhere to be found. Authorities arrived and began to take notice of their not ideal living situation. The house was in need of repairs and it lacked running water. The family also didn't have modern-day conveniences other than a television and a VCR. They also used a wood-burning stove to not only prepare meals but also to warm up the entire house. Their floor was littered with trash in every corner and it was very reminiscent of a hoarder's home. During the search, investigators also discovered a copious amount of adult videos and magazines. The state of the house didn't come as a complete shock initially, since majority of the family members lived off of Social Security. But once they got in the house, they noticed money just laying around in plain sight. The total amount found was around $20,000, and many began to question just who exactly the Kunz were. The Kunz appeared to have had violent beginnings, starting with their parents, Anna and Ignatz. In 1905, the parents were living with Ignatz's mother, Mary. Anna had come home to discover that his brother, Wendell, had bludgeoned their mother to death in her bed. As a result of this, Wendell was sent off to a mental institution. Surprisingly, this was not the first Kunz family member to be admitted. Ignatz had another brother who was already admitted prior to the murder. Mental illness seemed to have a very strong presence within the family. The investigation initially turned to Kenneth since he found the bodies, but Kenneth was soon cleared by his alibi. Kenneth had a low IQ and was painfully shy even still at 55, but he explained to police the events the best he could. On July 4th, 1987, Germaine Petcher, another of his aunts who didn't live with the family, came by to visit her siblings for a picnic. Kenneth stated he was with the family until about 8 p.m. that night before he decided to go work in the garden until around 10 p.m. After he finished tilling the soil, he decided to head to his job, which was about 3 miles away, in order to wash his car. This was apparently a pretty common occurrence. After he was finished, he then chose to go to a nearby bar. He stated he bought fireworks in between the factory and the bar, and then he chose to sleep in his car before returning to the home around 5 a.m. The sheriff estimated the murders happened between 10:30 and 11 p.m., despite not having the official time of death from the coroner. Randy's car was parked near the garden, which Kenneth stated was not where he parks. The tire impressions found in the area did not match his car. With little to no evidence, police began to focus on the missing member, Helen. At this point, they were unsure if she was a victim or involved. Kenneth claimed his mother would never venture off by herself. She never went to town alone, and it was unknown if she could even drive. Randy was always with her when she needed to go to town. He would just wait in the car while she attended to business. Germaine, Helen's sister, claimed on the day of the picnic she did not act any differently. She felt if Helen was planning something, she should have shown some signs of nervousness. The theory of Helen being involved gained more traction, though, when Gail and David Weiler, the owners of Weiler's hardware store, came forward with some interesting information. 3 weeks before the murder, Helen came to the store to order a toaster, and while she was there, she decided to purchase some .22 caliber bullets. Gail recalled how usually Helen was rather kind and quiet, but this day was different. Helen explained how upset she was with her family since all they did was sit at home all day watching dirty movies together. She gritted her teeth and expressed a lot of anger about the whole situation. Helen claimed she was buying the bullets for Randy to take care of some blackbirds that had been disturbing their property. Although the interaction was odd, Gail brushed it off until she heard about the murders. She contacted police the Monday after. The police did find a rifle of similar caliber in the home, but cobwebs were discovered in the barrel, showing it had been some time since its previous use. Unsure of her involvement, members of the community still banded together to create shirts, buttons, and search parties to find Helen. Unfortunately, Helen would turn up 9 months later, about 19 miles from the home in a frozen creek. She too had been shot in the head. This discovery left investigators with a new question. Was Helen held captive and killed as retaliation? There was always rumors speculating that the Kunz family was practicing not only familial relations, but romantic as well. This originally started in 1933 when Helen fell pregnant with Kenneth at just 15. She claimed she was sexually assaulted by a neighboring farmer named Frank Gums, who was ultimately convicted of the charge and sentenced to prison time. Helen had a very close relationship with her brother Clarence, who many speculated was the actual father of the child. The rumors about Kenneth's parentage didn't fall short of the family either, with Kenneth even confirming that he was told Clarence was his father. Kenneth was also led to believe Clarence may also be Randy's father, since no one was written on the birth certificate. But he stated he didn't truly know who either of their fathers were. Up until the murder, Helen also reportedly slept in the same bed as Randy, while Clarence, Irene, and Marie all slept in the living room together. No one in the town really believed Helen's allegations, and investigators felt her death could be due to her being spurned by so many. Another theory proposed was that Randy could have been selling drugs. At the time, the area had a really bad drug problem, and during latter trials, a witness was found who confessed that they had bought drugs from Randy. Investigators believed that maybe this could have been a drug deal gone bad, especially since Randy's body showed signs of assault. Despite their reclusiveness, police were able to track down someone else who had interacted with the family. 21-year-old farmer Chris Jacobs III only associated with the family a few times when he purchased a car from them. Jacobs was known for being a troublemaker and a thief. Since the remaining family members were ruled out and he was the only other person who interacted with them, police zoned in on him as a suspect. Based solely on the circumstantial evidence recovered, police charged him with 5 counts of murder. On October 28, 1989, he was sent to trial, but the lack of evidence could not seal a conviction, and Jacobs was acquitted on all 5 counts. His legal troubles were far from over, though, when a new development came forward. 4 years after his first trial, Jacobs was charged again, but this time for the kidnapping and false imprisonment of Helen. The charges came just hours before the statute of limitations on the case were set to expire. Jacobs did try to fight against these charges, arguing he had constitutional protections against double jeopardy, but he was denied. He even tried to appeal to the Supreme Court, who also refused the case. His second trial began on June 8, 1998, and lasted 2 weeks. The prosecution argued that Jacobs did in fact kill the family, then kidnapped Helen before doing the same to her. The case rested entirely on the word of Jacobs' ex-girlfriend, Stacy Weiss, who came forward in June of 1993. According to her, Jacobs had confessed 2 years before that he killed the family. During her interview with the sheriff's office, she states Jacobs and herself were driving from a pool league when he asked what her reaction would be if he was the one who murdered the family. He then just confessed, stating he wanted to prove to himself that he was a man. Weiss was told that he went to the Kunz home on July 4th when Randy let him inside. The pair ended up in a heated argument, and it resulted in him shooting Randy. He chose to tie up all of his loose ends by finishing off the rest of the family. He didn't provide an explanation why, but he chose to kidnap Helen, tying her up and then driving her to the swamp to rid himself of her. She claims he also confessed to his district attorney, who apparently wrote down his account, made him sign it, and then put it into an envelope. The statements were damning, so defense tried to discredit Weiss by pulling up her criminal past. They stated she was providing false testimony in order to escape her own charges of robbery in another state, which was not an incorrect statement. Stacy did have outstanding charges, and for her participation, a plea deal was granted. The conjunction of Stacy's testimony and the original evidence provided enough to convict. After 4 hours of deliberation, the jury found Chris Jacobs guilty of the new charges. He received a sentence of 31 years with a mandatory release date on February 8, 2020, followed by extended supervision upon release until 2029. At the age of 53, Jacobs was released but was reprocessed shortly after. He refused to cooperate with parole stipulations such as signing paperwork and reporting to his parole officer. He felt if he acknowledged and accepted the terms of parole, then he was admitting guilt. He chose to spend the rest of his sentence in prison, where he continues to maintain his innocence. Officially, the case is unsolved, but the town of Athens remains convinced that Chris is responsible. A book was written by Crocker Stevenson called Blood Relative: Portraits of a Mass Murder that details the crime and the lineage of the Kunz family. This one was strange, to say the least. During the research part of this, it seemed like these homicides were being almost overshadowed by this family's different lifestyle or the rumors that were sparked about their relationships with each other. I tried, and I didn't find anything to prove or deny the claims that Clarence was their father. I don't believe they actually ever did anything through DNA testing, and Kenneth died in 2001, so I don't imagine they're going to be trying to prove this anytime soon. What do you guys think, though? Is Chris really the responsible one? Let me know your thoughts below and we can chat about it. Please consider giving the video a thumbs up if you found the content interesting. And if you're not subscribed yet, you should, because we would love to have you under the ash tree. Thank you guys so much as always. I appreciate your feedback and kind words. You're all the best. Thank you for making my week, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, friends.